I am going to start by sharing a little bit about myself, just to introduce myself to you all. And so, as part of that, I also wanted just to take a few minutes to hear from some of you. So, if everybody would just take a quick minute, I don't know if we'll be able to see the chat now that we are sharing the screen. I'm sorry, but I was going to ask everybody to pop in the chat the year that you or your family had the privilege of coming to live in this beautiful county, and just take a minute to reflect on that and maybe share in the chat. If a couple people wanted to quickly raise your hand and share that information, that would be awesome. Can we see people's hands? Me and my family arrived in 1977. I'll talk a little bit more about that. Anyone else want to share their tale?
I arrived in 1974 when I was born in Davenport, but my grandfather came as a bracero, so many decades before that.
Your grandfather. Awesome. And you were born in Davenport. Lovely. Caitlin said she's new to the town.
I got to piggyback. Sorry, Miss Jasmine. I was in south of you, north of Santa Cruz, along the ranchos, also born in 82.
Rad.
But Santa Cruz.
Yay, born and raised. Cool. Cool. Well, I was personally, I was born in Southern California, and in 1977, I was 3. I just gave away my age. And my papa came to Santa Cruz County, and he actually came here as a direct result of a really crazy divorce and custody battle that my family was involved in. And so I share that because, well, I'm an open book and I like sharing about myself, but also, it's really drove my passion to be a lawyer. Would you mind going to the next slide for me, Lisa? Thank you. That's my newest business card. So yeah, this experience as a child really drove my desire to become an attorney, and I've really done everything I can through my last 25 years of lawyering to help educate people about the law. I really don't want anybody else to go through what I went through. My parents, they're both really amazing, loving people with big hearts, and I have no doubt that they were doing what they thought was best for me in fighting for this custody. But again, my mom ended up in jail for a moment for violating a custody order, visitation order, and that's when we moved to Santa Cruz County. So that's an interesting arrival into Santa Cruz. Next slide, please, Lisa. So yeah, I had the pleasure of going to Bradley Elementary School, Aptos Junior High School, and Harbor High. We went to the state championships on the volleyball team way back then. As part of my work experience, I had the privilege of doing a Department of Justice internship right out of law school. And I also worked at 2 large multinational law firms, one in DC and one in San Francisco. I quickly got disillusioned with law, and I went off to Costa Rica, and I worked on a farm for over a year. I've also lived for a short time in Spain. And so I really, really deeply appreciate my roots in our Hispanic community and my ability to speak the Spanish language. It's been a real privilege and honor to work with the Hispanic population with the knowledge that I have, both juvenile law, family law, and estate planning. So for the past 15 years, I have been with, with 3 different nonprofits providing nonprofit services. I left nonprofit world in May, and I am now launching Harmony Law. And I'm really passionate about doing estate planning because I still feel like I get to do an important service for people. And I am going to also be charging regular attorney rates to try to provide some more stability for my own family as well. So thank you. Next slide. So before we launch into the child care safety plan, I do believe that you might have, Lisa, were you able to share the document with everybody, or can we put that in the chat? If you don't mind, thank you so much.
I did put it in the chat earlier, and I can do it again.
Okay, well, if people are interested in viewing the child care safety plan document itself while we go over the training, it might help. And you can go to the next slide again. Enough talking about me. Thank you so much. Okay, so we have the document. Hopefully people have that. We really, I'm happy for everybody to hold this document and be able to start talking to people about it. And I really want to reiterate that our vision when we first created this in 2017 was that families would be helped in filling it out, because even though it's relatively simple to fill out, we try to create it as simple as possible. It is really important, and it obviously does really big things. So we really want to train the trainer and have as many organizations and schools and individuals ready to help families understand the difference between caregivers and guardians and powers of attorneys, etc. So yeah, we'll go over all of that. I also think that we will have time, if we can start quickly. I'm going to share a video that we often shared previously in doing this training work. This was created by Abriendo Puertas, Opening Doors. It's a statewide organization, and it gives a little flavor as to what we will be talking about. Do you want me to launch now, perhaps?
I couldn't open your video, Tanya.
Gotcha. Okay, let me take a minute to see if I can do this. Where's the Zoom? You have sound and everything too? Great, thank you. You guys will, around 2 minutes, this is a 5-minute video, 4-minute video, and at around 2 minutes, you'll hear what we're talking about, Child Care Safety Plan.
Unos niños en mi escuela se burlan de mí. Dicen que me vayan a México con mi familia. Me hace sentir muy mal. Yo no quiero ir a la escuela, mamá.
Ok, mi amor, no hay por qué avergonzarse y mucho menos por qué esconderse. Nosotros venimos para darles un mejor futuro y lo principal es que tú te enfoques en tu escuela.
Hoy en día, las familias inmigrantes enfrentan el estrés de la sociedad y ha habido un aumento de intimidación hacia los niños de padres inmigrantes. Muchas veces son los más pequeños quienes cargan con el mayor peso. Como padres, hágalos sentir seguros. Explíqueles que ellos van a estar bien y que son muy amados. Entienda y valide sus emociones. Aunque son pequeños, ellos comprenden y perciben lo que pasa a su alrededor, especialmente lo que sucede con sus padres. Si a sus niños le están haciendo bullying en la escuela, asegúrese de hablar con ellos y escribir detalles específicos del incidente para hablar con la directora de la escuela. Ellos tienen derecho a la educación, sin importar su estado migratorio. La escuela debe protegerlos si están siendo acosados. Es importante reconocer que históricamente el trauma infantil ha sido pasado por alto. Quizás debido a mis conceptos que los pequeños no perciben acontecimientos traumáticos o que siempre se recuperan pronto. En realidad, los primeros años de la vida constituyen un periodo muy sensible al trauma, más que en cualquier otra edad. Trabajando juntos, tenemos la oportunidad de un futuro mejor.
Todos somos seres humanos y como padres queremos lo mejor para nuestros hijos, seguridad y bienestar para nuestra familia.
Pero escuché en la tele que están deportando personas. ¿Eso nos puede pasar?
Hija, no te preocupes por lo que veas en la tele. Nosotros tenemos derechos y como familia hemos formado un plan de acción familiar en caso de emergencia. No te preocupes, siempre puedes contar con nosotros.
Hay millones de inmigrantes por todo el país en su misma situación y muchos tienen que decidir cuál es la mejor opción para su familia. Lo más importante es conocer sus derechos y tener un plan de acción familiar. Cada familia tiene que decidir qué es mejor para ellos. Actualice y mantenga todos sus documentos importantes como visas, actas de nacimiento y otros en un lugar seguro. Desarrolle un plan de acción familiar que incluya ¿Quién se encargará de los niños? ¿Quién los llevará a la escuela y a sus actividades? Tengan números importantes memorizados para que usted y sus hijos sepan a quién llamar en caso de una emergencia. Obtenga una carta de custodia temporal que señale quién se quedará con los menores en caso de una deportación. Pida que se mantenga la misma rutina en su ausencia para ayudar a que sus hijos no pasen por una transición aún más difícil. Conserve una actitud de esperanza. Ayude a sus hijos a ver que hay un futuro más allá de la situación actual y que el futuro puede ser bueno. Si usted tiene que tratar con oficiales de ICE en su casa, en la calle o en su trabajo, enséñeles la tarjeta que aparece en pantalla. Puede descargar la tarjeta en nuestra página web. Como sabemos, más vale prevenir que lamentar. Como padres no siempre podemos evitarles el estrés a nuestros hijos, pero lo que dicen los especialistas es claro. Si les damos cariño y amor y estamos con ellos, hacemos una diferencia en sus vidas. Hay que estar involucrados como padres en sus sentimientos y en su salud socioemocional, porque podemos marcar una diferencia. Y estamos como padres en una situación incomparable para poder apoyarles, sobre todo en estos momentos difíciles.
Recuerda lo mucho que te queremos y que haremos todo porque tú estés bien.
Sí, mamá, gracias.
No están solos. Hay muchas familias como la suya y organizaciones como Abriendo Puertas y otras en su área están para servirles. Sus familias son nuestra principal preocupación. Los inmigrantes contribuimos todos los días a la prosperidad de este país. Nuestros hijos son el futuro de este país y como tal son el recurso más valioso que tenemos y lo que va a seguir haciendo grande a esta nación. Para mayor información sobre Abriendo Puertas Opening Doors, consulte la página web que aparece en la pantalla, ap-od.org.
I tried one more time with the with my share. Is it working by chance?
It's still in a different mode, but we can see it, but it's not in the full screen. And it shows your notes. I can go back.
Okay. Thank you for sitting through that video. Again, I know this is not a super easy topic, but really important. And as we heard, better safe than sorry, mejor prevenir que lamentar. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start by just kind of putting childcare safety planning in context. Again, we have really done the best we could to be sensitive to the severity of the information and really helping families know that the idea is to be prepared and therefore reduce stress. So once you've completed the documents, even though it can be hard to discuss initially, we really hope that it reduces stress overall and that it leads you to, to feel safer overall. We've also worked really hard to try to work with trusted organizations so that the information could come from organizations that families are already comfortable with and already familiar with. They don't always want to hear it from me, that's for sure. But we done our best with trying to present the information in a safe and comfortable setting. Next slide, please. Super, super critical that everybody understands that even if we get the childcare safety plan completed, which is itself not always easy, we have found. But if you do get it completed, it really is only one part of a larger family emergency plan. So it's a really important part, but it's not the only part. So we want people to just to be aware of the other things. You still need to know your overall rights. Yeah, you need to make sure you update your school emergency cards. If you fill out a CSP plan, but you don't change the the safety cards at school, you can create problems. So really important to also keep those school emergency cards updated. And then, of course, other things, consulting an immigration attorney, knowing your immigration rights, consulting with the consulate, having the passports, as mentioned in the video, is really important for children if there was to be a deportation or otherwise. having children ready to travel or be able to travel, if that is the choice of the family, is really important. So checking both US and country of origin passports if possible. All these things are important parts of family emergency preparedness. Next slide, please. And the next slide. We do have a version of this presentation that goes into more Know Your Rights, but I went ahead and cut it for today. Could become necessary in the future. So what is the Child Care Safety Plan? It's a 28-page document with various pieces to it. We call it our Swiss Army knife. It's basically a letter from the parents to the world, which says, if something happens to me, this is who I want to take care of my children. Super important that parents have the opportunity to give that voice. If this document is not filled out, or any other, estate planning documents are not filled out, when emergencies occur, children end up in foster care. Even if there is a grandparent or a neighbor or an aunt who's immediately there, the police do not have to allow the children to go with the person. They fear liability, and they have to do background checks and all the difficult things that they do before they will release a child. Child often get placed in foster care, and sometimes longer than necessary. So we really, if we can, so I was going to say, this is on the next slide, I think, but let me finish with this one. That's the number one goal, is to prevent children from going into foster care and to give a voice to parents as to who they would want their children to be with. So there is a lot of different tools in it. You can kind of pick and choose as you'll see which ones you want to use. We do always have to say, of course, that there's no guarantee. We haven't, there's never any guarantees in life, and you never really know what's going to happen when you're faced with some of these situations. People are, we always say there's no guarantee, although it is, these are legal documents, and the caregiver authorization affidavit is absolutely a legal document that schools and medical facilities do have to accept. So, and next slide. Again, our goals are to avoid foster care, to really keep the dignity of children and families. We really love this toolkit because it does facilitate family conversations, and we really think that's a critical part of this, is having conversations about it, and also to avoid guardianship except where absolutely necessary. So again, I'm going to say that over and over again. You might want to nominate a guardian, and you might not, and you might not need to. The caregiver is a lesser, not court-ordered option. So caregivers are chosen by parents. Guardians, though they may be nominated by a parent, do not become a guardian until a judge has ordered it, until you go through a guardianship proceeding, which is very lengthy. It's one of the most extensive stack of forms that I've ever seen to get a court-ordered guardianship. So we really want to try to avoid that if at all possible. Next slide, please. Again, the communication about this plan is super, super critical. If you fill it out and you don't talk about it, it's pretty much worthless. You have to at least tell the chosen caregivers that you have created this form. It's probably also good to talk to your school about it, and maybe medical providers or care providers. You'll see in the form we have what's called the fridge sheet. So it's something that we suggest parents put on their fridge after they filled it out, which says, I have a child care safety plan. So if in case law enforcement or otherwise are inside the house, they'd be able to find that CSP with the caregivers' numbers right on there. And also talking to kids in an appropriate way, again, just age appropriate and sensitive, but just to let them know that there is a plan if there was an emergency. Next slide, please. So the form itself, again, it's relatively lengthy, but we've tried to make it quite simple. It's part of its length is because it's bilingual. The first step in filling it out is to identify the parents and the children. So another thing that we get lots of questions about is, what if there aren't two cooperating parents? Unfortunately, that is more and more these days. So we really highly suggest that a single parent might need to consult a family law attorney in order to find out how this document would impact the other parent's rights. So certainly best to have two parents named and both signing. If you are a single parent, yes, you can still use this form and simply cross out the other name. But again, we really advise that you talk to a family law attorney about what that really means. The document itself also defines incapacity quite broadly. Again, deportation, death, jail, illness, really anything that might come up that allows a parent to not be able to provide for their children. It's also for minors, obviously, but it's possible that it could also be used for adult children with special needs. So that's important to know. So again, the document itself, first you just name the parents, you name the children with their birth dates, etc. Next slide, please. And I'm getting cold. The next part is the hardest part in the form. So the designation of the caregiver and the alternate caregivers, we really hope that people can find 3 names to put on this form, one primary and then alternates. But of course, this is the hardest part. And so we just really want to be sensitive to that. For some people, it's easy. They know exactly who that would be. And for a lot of families, they don't know, or they don't have family nearby. And so we have really appreciated, again, the opportunity to think about this and to know that there are people at church, there are neighbors, there are people that are willing to step up and be that person for your children. I've heard a lot of really beautiful stories about people, stepping up, and it's an important thing to think about. So trust versus nurture, we put in there. Sometimes your family is the best person and sometimes not. So just keeping in mind, it really needs to be somebody that you trust. And again, understanding the difference between naming a caregiver and naming a guardian. There are options in this form for both, and it may be the same person or it may not be. It's up to you. Also, the only requirement for a chosen caregiver is that they're an adult. There really is no other legal requirement. However, on the next slide, we do recommend that at least one of the 3 chosen caregivers is, what we deem stable. So that's generally somebody with legal status who isn't at risk of deportation themselves, somebody who doesn't have a criminal history, who might end up in jail, and or who CPS wouldn't approve because of their criminal history. Somebody not terminally ill, somebody not getting ready to go off to school. At least one of the 3 alternates, should be in that stable category, if at all possible. It doesn't mean that if you have an undocumented mother or mother-in-law who you would want to care for your children, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't name that person. It is absolutely okay to put that undocumented family member as your number 1 choice. We're just suggesting that one of the 3 be somebody that isn't at risk of not being available. So again, hopefully not somebody with criminal records, or at least one of the 3 not having criminal records. And if you don't use all 3 spaces for naming a caregiver and 2 alternates, then we recommend that make sure you cross off the empty boxes, anything you don't use. Obviously, you don't want somebody showing up later on and putting something there that you did not put yourself. So that's an important note when helping families fill this out. Next slide. So the heart of the child care safety plan is this form that is included in the packet. It's called the Caregiver's Authorization Affidavit. And this is a very important document that not very many people know about. It's straight out of the probate code. It's quiet in here. Can you guys still hear me? The AI person thought I was being quiet. I don't know why. Anyway, so the caregiver authorization affidavit, it's a very important form. It's existed in the probate code for a long, long time. It actually came about as part of the AIDS epidemic in the 80s or so. And it's basically, a parent does not sign this caregiver authorization affidavit. It exists for a caregiver to swear that they are authorized to care for this child because the parent is unavailable. So it's a great tool, it's a great form, and the child care safety plan gives more force to it. Our hope is that we're going to not only let the caregiver sign it, but we're going to have a notarized document which the parent said, yes, I want that person to be my caregiver. I wanted that person to use this caregiver authorization affidavit. So the authorization affidavit legally is required to be accepted, again, by schools and doctors, medical professions. So again, the CSP is intended to take this authorization affidavit and give it some more voice, give it some more effects. So if you go to the next slide, the next document, the next page of our child care safety plan gives this additional powers of caregivers. It's very interesting, this authorization affidavit, without court-ordered guardianship, the Little League often won't let the grandma enroll the child in Little League. Aftercare, like the IEPs, there's a lot of things that a caregiver can't do without court-ordered guardianship. So our intent in creating this document was that it hopefully allows a caregiver to also do these other things, such as school, Little Leagues, travel, public benefits. So that was the main intention, is to try to give caregivers more authority based on the parent's notarized signature, giving them that authority. If there's anything on this list of additional powers on that page that a parent doesn't want, they can simply strike it out. And such as travel, for example, that's an important one to point out when you are helping families fill this out. Do you want that chosen caregiver to have authority to travel with the child or not? Next slide, please. There is also a consent to medical treatment in here. This is somewhat duplicative because that authorization affidavit is supposed to suffice in doctor's offices, but oftentimes medical providers want this specific consent form also filled out. So we have included it, and parents can sign this as well. Next slide. So then that's basically the end of the CSP form. The next thing that needs to be done is the parents need to sign it. Again, best if there's both parents signing it, and if there's not, we really hope that you'll consult a family attorney and find out more about it. I won't go into all of that right now. Again, if there is only one parent, you can just cross out that other box and sign it yourself. Next slide. We then have witnesses, an option for witnesses to sign the document, and that kind of makes the CSP document complete. So you have parent signatures, you have the witnesses, and that is the entire CSP itself. And then we have some optional forms afterwards. So we'll go onto the next slide and I'll talk about those. The important information and documents form is optional, but strongly recommended. Some people get, they don't want to be burdened by filling out all the doctor's names and the favorite ice cream and their, what their child's general life is like. But again, the more information that's here, the easier the transition is. When it comes down to these really sensitive times, if a caregiver knows the child's favorite ice cream, it might be a little bit easier for the child in that moment. So we really strongly recommend that all this information is filled out in this optional section. The next optional section, if you go to the next slide. So this is the big one. And we went round and round and round about whether we even wanted to include this in the packet. But we do think it's important for parents to try to understand that they can also fill out this legal form to nominate an individual to become a future guardian if and when necessary. So this is the form that would end up in court. So the judge would then see the parent's nomination, and they would most likely order that guardian to become the guardian. Again, if there's another, if there's a single parent trying to name a guardian, the other parent is going to, you know, have rights over that named guardian most likely. So that's when things get a little bit difficult. But anyway, so again, with the understanding of what a guardianship is and what the risks are associated with guardianship, it still can be an important document that some parents may or may not want to fill out. Again, as I said before, if a guardianship is ordered in court, the parents' parental rights are temporarily terminated. And in order to regain their rights, they have to go back to court and fight to get the rights back. Hopefully that's easy. Hopefully the guardian agrees and the court agrees and everything is fine. But I have seen some really, really tragic situations where well-meaning guardians think that the children are now best with them, more or less, and they don't always want to relinquish control to the parents, especially if a parent was deported because of a criminal activity or something along those lines. You know, there's lots of situations. So I think it's important for parents to be aware of these risks. After 3 years of a court-ordered guardianship, a guardian very simply has an easy path to adoption. So they can then petition for adoption and parental rights are forever terminated. So those are important things to know about guardianship. And again, in other situations, it's might be important or necessary to have. So if you have a lot of trust in the people you're choosing, then yes, you can fill that form out. And if you maybe don't, then you might not want to. And the last piece of the CSP, thank you, Lisa, is the power of attorney for travel abroad. So again, just a really important thing to families to think about, whether or not this is something that you would want. You know, what would be your plan if, for example, there is a deportation and you know that you'd want your children to be reunited with you in their country of origin, then you would want to fill out this power of attorney for the caregiver to travel with the child. But it's also a big deal to give somebody that right. Maybe they end up in a different country instead of the country where you thought they were going to go. You really want to be aware of the risks of abduction and other, you know, well-meaning people doing things that you wouldn't have wanted. So be very careful with filling out the power of attorney for travel, but it is something that might be important for families to use. So that is also included. And then essentially we would talk to the family about what to do with this plan once it is filled out, you know, keeping their originals in a safe and confidential place. We recommend giving copies of the plan to those potential caregivers. You don't have to, I mean, as long as they know that they are a chosen caregiver and they know where the plan is, then that would be sufficient. But it's usually a good idea for them to have a copy of it. You also could give copies of your important documents to that, at least one of those chosen caregivers. That's usually a good idea. And then again, that CSP fridge sheet that we talk about, which tells the world that there is a CSP plan in place. And the caregiver should keep the document confidential when they're using it. If they need to use it, it's just important to know they might not need to show the whole document to the person. If they're just using it for travel, for example, they just need that power of attorney for travel. They don't have to give them the whole CSP, especially the confidential or the important information about the child, for example. You don't need to use that when you're trying to get the kid involved in Little League. So just good to know that they what they would do with it when they do have it. Next slide. Super, super important for families to know that they can change it at any time. They can revoke it. They can make modifications to it. They are in charge. This is not, you know, one and done thing. If there are going to be any changes, we'd suggest that it be in writing and also signed and dated. And you're going to want to make sure that the other versions of it that you have given out also have the same changes, or that you give the new form to everybody. All right, well, that's about it. I'm super happy to take some questions. And I just wanted to give a little bit of homework as well. I really would like everybody to just take a few minutes either now or afterwards, just to kind of consider how this impacted you and how it makes you feel. You know, if you're left with fear or if you're left with hope, you know, my hope is that people do feel, you know, empowered with this information, just to know that they have a voice and that they are, you know, we're creating an action for safety and security. So I also suggest that you really tell other parents about this. Again, it really means a lot to me that parents understand that they have a right to name caregivers. And I'm happy for you to contact me or any of the CSB team. There are several folks on the call just to brainstorm ways to share this effectively in our community. If you have any concerns about it being shared or any concerns about you know, the program itself, I'm happy to hear that as well. And the next slide, I think I have my contact information. And again, I know that Kate is on from CAB, and I know we have lots of representatives from Community Bridges on. I know UFW is on, and I know they are going right now. They're already doing a lot of family planning, and they're going out into doing house visits. So they're already in action, UFW Foundation. So I'm grateful for them joining the call and being on. And Monarch Services as well. I've been in touch with them. And so I think that they're all ready to once again serve our community if needed. And so we are just kind of assessing when and if this is important to launch and or just at least having the knowledge out there. So if we do you know, do a more broad rollout of this, we definitely will need more volunteers. So please do reach out to me at harmony@harmonylaw.net and let me know if you are interested in participating with sharing this information. Does anybody have any questions before we get back to the meeting?
Go ahead, Jorge.
Oh.
Yeah, no,